谢谢大家回谢北北时间，我是大叔傻。
我是大叔甲。
今天有一个很有趣的讲者，然后他是 Yamaguchi Yutaka，是山口 Sensei 啊、他现在是在京都大学的教授，他在京都大学有3个 appointment， 超级厉害的。他在那个管理学院、设计学院与那个经济学院。不好意思，京都大学的体制我不是很清楚，不过就是他这3样东西，他都是有当教授这样子。那他自己是京都大学的学士跟硕士，然后他的博士是在美国的 UCLA，然后他在美国也工作一段时间，包括在 Palo Alto Research Center，就是所谓的 Xerox PARC，那当然，另外一方面，那个山口先生跟我以前是同事了，然后他最近跟他聊到，所以就请他上我们节目。所以大叔讲，你觉得呢？
我觉得这个我自己个人是很期待的，因为这也跟大家提醒一下，就是说山口老师在 YouTube 上面有一个 TED Talk，那我们希望大家如果有时间的话，之前或是之后可以来听听这个 TED Talk，因为他等一下我们跟他讲的可能有很高的关联度。那山口老师的这个，特别是讲到这个顾客满意度跟所谓的顾客的这个服务的这个关联，我觉得应该是很值得我们来期待的。那我们就直接进入节目喽。Hello, we're back.
Hi, everybody. So we were very lucky to have Yutaka join us today. And so I think the very first thing is actually I had a chance to watch the TED talk that he gave, and maybe we can start with that. So please, enlighten us on what you have shared on your TED talk on YouTube.
Okay, so hi, my name is Yutaka. Thank you for having me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I just walked through the TED Talk, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I study services, and basically services in a sense that I study how service providers and customers interact and achieve the service and create value, right? So basically, most people have said that in order to create value, you just make the service pleasing and comfortable and easy for customers, right? So you try to satisfy customers. But I thought it's not that simple, right? So basically raised in Japan, so I know a lot of services are not like that. For example, sushi bars. So those things are called bars because you basically eat in front of the chef who is cooking. So there's a bar on the bar counter, right? And most Japanese people going to a sushi bar are anxious. It's not an easy environment. You need to understand a lot of things. There's no written menu provided, but without any information, without any written menu, no price indicated, right? Mm-hmm. And they ask you, what would you like to have, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to be able to answer that question. And so it's not an easy service, right? Mm-hmm. So I actually went to several sushi bars in Tokyo, famous ones, and videotaped those interactions and analyzed them. That's what I do for my research.
That's a tough job, you know.
Yeah.
You mean the eating part?
I observe people eating while I'm not eating. So,
oh no, that is tough.
So yeah, so what's interesting is, so for example, they ask questions, very difficult question, as if it's an easy question, right? So as soon as you are seated so let's assume you come to this particular establishment for the first time. You don't know how this place is organized. You don't know the price, you don't know what's available, and so on. Then as soon as you are guided to a seat, and you're about to settle down, then they ask you, what would you like to drink? Right? At that point, they don't provide you with any written menu. So, and you're kind of anxious whether, okay, so the beer would be like a safe choice, but is beer actually appropriate? Right? Many people say, okay, beer doesn't go well with low fish. Well, yeah. And those kind of things. So you're anxious. But they ask that question as if it's an easy question, and you have to be able to answer that question as if it's an easy question. So it's tricky, right? So I can describe those things based on my data.
Right. Yeah. No, I think, again, I strongly encourage everybody who have not yet done so, go ahead and watch the TED Talk video, which obviously we're providing the link you can refer to. And I think one of the very opening clip you show is from that famous documentary with Gato Sushi, right? And then and this food critic who is supposed to have gone there many times, he still said he is still a bit anxious. So I mean, do you have any insights on why? I mean, I can totally see the first time being, but why is he still anxious?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So first of all, this is a Michelin Guide 3-star restaurant, and you have to pay about, let's say, $400 per person. And so he is a customer coming into this place, and he says he is still anxious, nervous coming in. Okay, why is that? So so that's the question that I had to struggle with. Okay, my answer is this. So basically, if the sushi chef tries to please the customer, then the customer cannot be satisfied, which is the paradox. Okay, so the reason is this. So if the chef tries to please you as a customer, then you kind of think, oh, this chef is interested in my evaluation. So this chef is a little bit subservient to you, right? So, okay, so that's fine. But the problem is that the service you receive from somebody a little bit subservient is not as valuable anymore. So it's a tricky business, right? So you want to please this customer, but if you try to please the customer cannot be as satisfied. So think about the sushi that the chef makes, right? Okay, so the chef doesn't smile, chef doesn't try to please you, but the chef is very serious and make the sushi and give it to you, and you eat it, or you feel that the sushi is very special. Compared to the situation where the chef like smiles and asks what you would like to, what you want and all those things, then you kind of think, oh, okay, so this chef is trying to please me. So so now the sushi, you don't feel that sushi is as good, right? That's what I mean.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think one of the things that in our prior conversation you mentioned, and I thought it's very insightful, which is service is a value co-creation. So, in terms of a co-creation process, if one is, more dominant, I mean, meaning it needs to go back and forth. It's not like a master versus slave kind of situation. Well, not that extreme. But I thought that is interesting because, I mean, at least for me, until watching your talk, to me, service is something that I receive. I never thought of myself participating in, think of it almost as an ecosystem. The fact that how I receive the service also describe what that service is. And I believe that's the direction you're pushing, yeah?
Yeah, so you dropped many words here. So so the co-creation, so value in service, value is co-created. So which is a key concept. So the thing is, so the service provider cannot just create the service and give it to the customer unilaterally. So the customer has to participate in the co-creation process of the value, right? So that's the key idea. So if you go to, let's say, if you go to have your haircut, okay, you cannot just sit there and get your haircut. You need to participate in the sense that you have to be a certain customer. You have to be able to convey what you want and so on, right? So, or a restaurant, you need to be able to order something, right? All those kind of things. So compared to buying some good, it doesn't really matter who you are. You just pay for it and receive it, right? But in service, you participate. So in that sense, you cannot separate yourself from the service. You cannot be in the safe place observing the service. You are implicated in the service. So, okay, so that means who you are really matters in service, right? And so even, let's say, even if you go to a fancy coffee shop, right? You kind of feel, okay, you're a customer, but at the same time, you have to worry about how you look, right? You wear a nice clothes, for example, going to a fancy cafe, right? All those things, right? Yeah. So that's what it is. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I am wondering if you could also comment on, to me, is somewhat parallel, which is beyond service. So for example, Birkin bag, one is obviously very expensive, but the other, my understanding is once you put in an order, if they take you as a customer for Birkin bag, you need to wait 2 years. and so I guess what I'm trying to get a sense of is, Birkin bag is obviously very high-end product. So is that the same idea that, you make it rare and you have to wait and do all that, just like, the sushi chef say, well, what do you want to drink? That's the only question you got.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, so the access to the service is difficult, then the value goes up, right? Because it's a rare item. And you can also show that you got something rare and that other people cannot get easily. But at the same time, so if we think about this from a dialectic point of view, from this paradox point of view, right? So it's so the customer comes with money and he or she wants to pay for it, but then you say, okay, you cannot get it, right? In the next 2 years, you have to wait. So it's a gesture to say, okay, so our product is so special that even money cannot get, and you have to pay your price in a sense that you have to wait and you have to all those things, right? So, and that creates the value that creates very high value, right? So and then there's all rationale behind it. It's not easy to make those things. It's a high quality product, blah blah blah. So of course, yeah. But so that's a gesture, yes, on the part of the service provider. Yeah.
So this insight is actually rather powerful in the sense that, like you said, there's sort of co-creation process going on there. If I were a McDonald's or some sort of lower end service provider person,
I don't think McDonald's called it lower end, but yes.
yes.
Lower price points, yes.
Yes, excuse me.
We're happy to be sponsored by McDonald's if anybody is listening.
Yes, we like everybody. So what is the insight for this other sort of people in this other space? What can they do, or what should they learn from this lesson?
Yeah. So from my point of view, any service, as long as it's value co-creation, any service is a struggle. At least it has some aspects of struggle, right? So McDonald's is one. Some other places, they try to show their products special, right? And many places put rather obscure names to their products, sometimes foreign language. Like if you go to Starbucks, they say, oh, they don't use like small, medium.
Yeah, I never quite figure out the size. I have the cup size.
That's a huge struggle. Every time I go in there, just like, okay, give me large. They insist.
Grande.
Yeah, did you mean grande? I mean, like, whatever that is. I look at it,
whatever it is.
Just whatever that's in the middle.
Yeah, so short, tall in English, but the grande, venti, and Trento, and those things are Italian, right? The American or any like non-Italian people don't understand, but they use those words intentionally to make their service authentic, right? So of course, like a Starbucks employees smile, but at the same time, they do that. So they kind of say, okay, this is why do they put the Italian on their menu, right? So they are basically negating customers. Basically what they are saying is, okay, our service is much better than what you expect. It's much better than your daily life. It's non-quotidian. It's above your level, right? That's so they are kind of negating the customer, and then the customer has to struggle to live up to it, which is there's a little gap always in the service, because you have to create the gap because you want to show your service is valuable, right? If you just present something familiar and quotidian, then the customers find no value, right? Of course, you want to get something quick and easy. Sometimes you're running, then it has some value, but it's not really a high value, right? Yeah. So that's my point. And then, so what about McDonald's, right? Nobody is anxious going to McDonald's, but it's very popular. It's very popular. I actually have an interesting interpretation of that.
Yeah,
so McDonald's is the kind of is epitome of of modern society, right? So think about the whole history of McDonald's. It came out in the 50s, but it really spread in the 60s, right? And in the 60s, the teenagers in the 60s, as you know, the 60s was the time when a lot of things have changed, and a lot of civil rights movement, feminism, anti-Vietnam War protest, and also student protests all over the world, 68. But society was changing a lot. But then the most American people were living a very traditional life, right? So the mother cooked, and everybody sat down at the table and prayed and ate every day, right? But then that's a comfortable traditional life. But then in the 60s, society has been changing a lot, and teenagers were kind of sensing the change. Okay, so the American people in the rural areas, many of them were a little bit like, there was some racism and all those kind of things, feminism, sexism and all those kind of things, right? So the younger people were feeling a little bit anxious. They like the traditional life, but they had some ambivalent feeling about it, right? And then McDonald's showed up, and they said, one author said, McDonald's was the proof of their existence. It was the symbol of modernity for them, right? So the first time they stepped on McDonald's, they were very anxious. They were stepping into a new era, new world, right? Leaving behind the old life. So that's the experience. Okay. So to me, it's very important to create a service. So they are negated. So basically McDonald's is saying that, okay, you are coming from the old world. We are the new world. And they try to transform themselves by stepping into McDonald's, right? It's kind of interesting because people McDonald's is loved a lot, but it's also hated, right?
Yes.
Which is
the
a reality.
feelings are very, very clear.
Yeah. So that's because they have this dynamism going on, right? But anyway, that's a long story. But nobody is anxious going to McDonald's. But if you think about their strategy, they target young children, right? They want to go to McDonald's and eat whatever they want, and typically parents doesn't like the idea. And
that's very true.
So, but it's prohibited, right? So the McDonald's is a little bit, it's a prohibition for children. But then they want to go there on their own and order whatever they want and eat it. That's the first step. The first experience going to McDonald's on their own is traumatic in a sense that it's they are anxious going there, and that's imprinting effect is very important for McDonald's, right? But my point is this: so to create a value, it's not just you get nice food for a low price. It's basically a struggle to prove yourself, right? Prove yourself and get recognized. And for that, you are kind of negated and you feel anxious, right? That's the dynamic, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's absolutely fascinating. I never thought of going to McDonald's as a struggle. I would eat my next McDonald's with a brand new perspective.
Yes.
So we're at toward the end of the show, but I do want to kind of sneak in a question that, you know, Yutaka, as you talk through this, I totally get the point about the co-creation, negating, and, you know, sort of the struggle. How does this translate across cultural borders? You know, because I think, you know, like the American culture is in many ways familiar to, even if you don't necessarily live in the US. But I mean, you know, like can you, for example, the sushi places I go in Taiwan, they are definitely much more friendly than the one I've been to Japan. And I wonder, does it make it less good now, you know?
Yeah, good question. It really depends on the cultural context. So it varies from country to country. So you mentioned the US culture. They tend to they tend to avoid that kind of struggle in service, right? But if you go to Europe, particularly, for example, France, right? A typical story in France is if you go to a high brand store, particularly a heritage store, which is on the street, not in a department store, right? Like a Hermes store on the street. The employees are not friendly, right? Sometimes they tell you to go back, right? So that is that they do that knowing this struggle aspect of service. And high-end hotels as well. If you go to a European hotel, let's say you cannot find the bathroom, right? But if you go to a high-end American hotel, okay, so anybody can find a bathroom, right? So it's designed that way. So, right? So, but anyway, so it really, and the Japanese culture is similar to the French culture, right? Even the popular services like ramen places, they design the struggle into it, right? So you have to know how to behave in the place. You have to know how to order ramen, right? Which is crazy.
But, yeah, actually, that reminds me of that very famous Seinfeld episode called Soup Nazi.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So I guess you know, you also teach, right? I mean, I don't think teaching is necessarily a service, because that would be sort of denigrating the teaching profession. But I don't know if some of your students will come back to you and say, you know, that when you make the course so difficult and, you know, the grading on the curve and whatnot, do they come back more satisfied or more fulfilled over the years? What's your own personal account there?
Okay, yeah. So it's really okay. So by the way, so this is a good occasion to clarify. When I say service has to be struggle, it cannot be only struggle, right? The ultimate goal is to satisfy customers. And in educational service, the ultimate goal is to have students understand the material, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So there's no point in introducing struggle just for the sake of it, right? But,
of course.
That said, but I think it's very important to think about this struggle even in education. So the students value what we say as instructors when they think what we are saying is authentic and valuable, right? To show that, we have to say, we cannot really do the teaching for students, right? we have to do the teaching for ourselves, right? In the sense that we are kind of trying to get to the truth or trying to get to the real knowledge, right? And so on. So that's kind of important, but then it doesn't make any sense to just make the course difficult, right? You have to make it difficult, but at the same time, you have to make it easy.
Sure. I mean, you make it difficult in the sense that they need to struggle and put in some real effort, but also it needs to be somewhat within reach. Otherwise, they just give up completely. I mean, from my own personal experience, some of the most difficult A minuses have been the most fulfilling A minuses in my life.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's sorry, just one quick final question, I think. Now that obviously you have thought very deeply about this, how does this change your experience eating sushi?
Oh yeah, it's so when I go to a service, any restaurants or any service, I cannot help like analyzing it. But the good thing about sushi is that because I've studied it a lot and I studied different restaurants and all that. But what I found is that the first question they ask you is always the same, and is at the very same timing they ask the same question. So now I'm prepared, right? And I know what to say, right?
So what's your answer in like, what would you like to drink?
Yeah. So most people just order a beer, right? But then, so what's interesting is, so sometimes you order beer. So the regular customers, what they do is they say, "Oh, I get small bottle," right? So the reason is that when you ask for beer, they ask you, okay, we have a medium and small bottles. Which one would you like, right? And then you choose a small bottle, right? But if you know the routine, you even answer the question that's not even asked, right? Okay, small bottle, right? Well, I would go for like a sake, right? Because many people choose beer because it's a safe choice, and it would be interesting to try to show you're different, right?
So you kind of throw them off a little bit and say, hey, this one is not this is going to be an easy struggle even for you.
Yeah, it's gonna be a real struggle this time. Wow, now that absolutely fascinating. So our time is coming up. So once again, really appreciate Yutaka's sharing those experiences and his research, and definitely want to ask him back. Actually, Yutaka, you did mention you are now sort of extending the work and looking at the sort of the co-creation in terms of innovations and all that. So maybe we can invite you back to talk about it next time.
Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me today.
Oh no, thank you for your time, and we'll take it from here. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
哇，真的很感谢那个 Yutaka 跟我们分享这么细的事情。我觉得，我自己的感觉最深刻的是，当然吃过寿司，也去过那种就是贵桑桑的地方吃过，然后我一直觉得我算是有一点见过世面的人，可是真的专家一出来，他把整件事情分析，就是太有趣了。我觉得最有感觉对我啦，最有感觉就是任何的服务本身，它就是一个双向的，就是说，你就算是碰到一个很烂的服务生，或是你一个很傲客，可是那还是一个双向的，就是我从来没有想过这一件事，是很有趣。那大主讲，你觉得呢？
对，我觉得你刚刚讲就是说，这个双向的概念其实是，也许我们心里都知道，但是 有时候就需要人家点一下，你知道，就觉得说哦进去然后点一个东西，东西拿了就走了。那我觉得因为是双向，所以就会它就是一个所谓的 interaction， 大家就必须得互动。那因为得互动，就会有很多不一样的面向会跑出来，平常比较少注意到的。我觉得就是说，那个山口老师讲说，那个去吃Sushi，然后坐下来，然后那个Sushi桑第一个就丢过来说要喝什么，然后就愣住。我觉得这种因为我们台湾吃Sushi是接受度很高啦，所以我觉得对我们台湾的听众，这个可能某种程度没有那么震撼，但是我想到说，如果我们另外一个角度去想说，我们坐在一个有星级的这个法式料理，然后在法国某一个地方，这个丢出来说要喝什么，我觉得这个可能大家会很有感觉。就第一个就是心里小小的慌了，就说哇，那个酒单可能都不一定看得懂，然后那个菜单到底怎么配，然后红酒要配什么酒，然后白酒等等，那个。如果做一个那个动画，就很多问号就开始跑出来，然后惊叹号跑出来，所以我觉得这个作为一个英文讲说是 struggle， 就是这个是必须得你说挣扎嘛，必须得挣扎，然后得去理解的这个过程就开始紧张起来了。
对啊，因为他说，而且我觉得，当然他是一个学者，那因为我之前跟他同事过，所以就是对他的这种学术上或是做研究的过程是算熟悉了。然后我觉得，这次学到很多的是，当他把这个过程的一节一节拆开来看的时候，就发现说这个所谓的 struggle， 所谓的挣扎，你是可以去设计的。例如，他就讲到像我们去 Starbucks。它的大中小杯，它就不叫大中小杯，它就一定要叫个另外一个名字那就是某种程度就是让使用者就是要进入它的那个过程。那甚至不见得甚至不用去法国，你如果在台湾的那种比较高级一点的法国餐厅，它的 menu 一般是写法文的。所以那个时候呢，幸好就有 Google Translate， 然后看半天说这是什么碗糕，
看半天还是说那你们建议是怎么办？就常常就求救的信号就要出现了，是说
是
这真的很有趣，就是势力范围可能不是一个很好的讲法，就是说进入它的游戏规则啦，就是我觉得刚刚大叔上有讲到，就是说早期Starbucks 刚刚开始的时候，其实说实在到现在我还是搞不太清楚说大中小到底他们怎么分类。
所以我就不去 Starbucks 啊，我觉得我太没有配合度了。
你不想玩那个游戏，那当然这是另外一种玩法，就是我不进入你的游戏规则嘛。那我觉得这些聪明的有智慧的服务的你说公司也好，像 Starbucks 也好，他就是把你拉进去他的游戏规则。我觉得刚才大叔上讲的有一个点，我真的是感同身受，就是说平常我们大概都隐约知道这些规则，或者是这些他们在玩的游戏啦，但是我觉得经过老师这样指点，就是把一个看起来乍看起来还蛮复杂的东西，一个一个拆解出来，我觉得我自己是受益良多啊。就是说，下一次也许遇到类似的状况的话，就比较不会那么慌。也许从某个角度可以坐下来，也去某种程度就是一个一个拆解，一个一个分析，说他们到底在玩什么碗糕，你知道吗？
是啊，所以最后我觉得我们问那个 Yutaka 最后的那个问题最有趣，就是所以后来你现在变成专家的时候，你去吃 Sushi 的时候，你会怎么回答这些问题？所以他从此就不叫秘鲁，他要喝 sake。
标准答案
没有，就是不给标准答案。
对，就把他那个我不知道是那种用另外一招把它打回去，然后那个 Master Chef 可能会说so desu ka
就是那个也要让师傅稍微挣扎一下，这互相的
是一个双向的挣扎。然后从他的角度，也许会说今天有一个 你不是说惊喜吗？不要，应该不是惊吓，就是惊喜说哦，原来有人是识货的，而且他是尝试的是一个怎么讲，是一个就是不要说比武招亲啦，就是说大家是说哦，他也看得懂我在做什么，然后以其人之道还治其身，是不是还之彼身？然后就是说这个是识货的，我要好好的来那个 up my game，就是我们今天要好好的来做一个指点一下，互相指点一下。
所以 anyway，希望大家喜欢我们这个他自己是一个 standalone，他就是因为跟 Yutaka 讨论到这件事情，那就说不要说别的，日本教授来讨论日本的那个日本之神厉害的点在哪里？觉得这太酷了，所以我们这个节目先大约到这边，所以还是要感谢大家给我们的 feedback。那我们大叔甲、大叔上我们都有在读大家 feedback，然后当然这个节目背后有一个很厉害的团队，我们的音乐是 Brian 选的。
我们自己的制作团队是 Ariel、Hannah、Lalisa、Tiffany 跟 Oliver， 我们也特别感谢他们。
对，然后呢，也很高兴跟大家报告，第4季终于要结束了，就是下礼拜3就是我们的第4季的最后一集，也请大家多多期待。那你如果喜欢谢北北时间的话，请你在你听 Podcast 平台订阅，打5颗星、按赞跟留言。
是的，那这段疫情时间是的，很难想象我们还是在疫情中，希望大家能够好好照顾自己，然后这段时间大家都要保持的平安喜乐。
拜拜。
拜拜。